This upcoming European election looks to be the most interesting in British history. Across the continent, EU elections historically attract low turnout. This time in the UK it could be a little different. Whether it is love or hatred of the EU, the polls will be a chance for the British people to publicly show their feelings about Brexit, which still dominates politics in the country. The UK voted to leave the EU in June 2016 by 52% to 48%. The country was meant to have left on the 29th of March this year, yet it is over a month later and the government still looks far from a workable solution. Since then it has extended the deadline, first until the 12th of April and then until the end of October. This meant, to the annoyance of many in the UK and in Europe, the UK would have to take part in the upcoming EU elections. EU elections in the UK use a different system to general elections. General elections use first past the post, which means whoever gets the most votes in that constituency wins, and all other candidates go home empty-handed. So in our example, the Conservatives would win the only MP in the constituency with 37% of the vote. But in Europe, the UK, excluding Northern Ireland, uses the closed party list system with a D'Hondt formula. This is a form of proportional representation that, unlike the first past the post system, delivers multiple representatives per constituency. Each constituency delivers between 3 and 10 MEPs depending on its population. These seats are allocated using the D'Hondt formula, votes won divided by seats already won plus 1. Using our example from before, imagine there are 3 seats up for grabs in this constituency. For the first seat, as no seats have already been won, we divide the Conservative total by 1, which makes no difference, so they win the first seat. Then, as they have won 1 of the 3 seats, we divide their total by 2, given they have won 1 seat, then we add 1. This leaves their total at 18,500. So the second seat goes to Labour, as they now have the highest total of votes. Their total is then divided by 2, as they have now won a seat. And for the final seat, the Conservatives win again, as they have the most votes again, even after dividing their initial tally by 2. The final results would be 2 seats for the Tories, 1 for Labour, and the Lib Dems and Greens are left without a seat. This shows while small parties will fare better than under first past the post, the need for a certain number of seats in a constituency means they aren't guaranteed a percentage of seats as they would under proportional representation. A more proportional system, paired with the fact that EU elections are commonly used as a protest vote, means pro- and anti-Brexit parties are likely to significantly overperform, as UKIP did in 2014's EU elections. So it will not predict the outcome of the general election. However, results may force policy decisions of key players that could be just as monumental. Now on to the state of the parties who are contesting the election. The ruling centre-right Conservative Party, under the leadership of then Prime Minister David Cameron, called the referendum 3 years ago as a response to finishing third in the 2014 EU elections and rising Eurosceptic sentiment within his own party. The party looks in for a humiliation. The Conservatives are now led by David Cameron's successor, Prime Minister Theresa May, who is widely regarded to have lost all authority and is facing internal pressure to resign. Much of this annoyance stems from her handling of Brexit negotiations. Broadly speaking, the pro-Remain MPs of her party worry she has conceded too much power to the Leave supporters in the party and have been ignored in the process. They worry this is moving the party further right. On the other hand, the pro-Leave MPs believe the Prime Minister, who supported Remain in the referendum, does not actually want to leave, and has been conceding too much power to the European Union in her botched negotiations. Many also think the party should have left the EU in March without a deal, rather than remaining in an indefinite uncertainty. Attempts at a deal have been embarrassing for the government. Theresa May witnessed her deal squashed twice in the Commons, becoming the government's worst and third worst losses in Parliament ever. This chaos will see the party punished by supporters who generally favour leaving, regardless of a Brexit deal, and polls are putting the Conservative Party at a tragic 15.1%. The usually centre-left Labour Party is led by Jeremy Corbyn, a veteran on the far left of the party. Before April, Labour looked to be in a disastrous position, all things considered. Despite a government who could no longer control its MPs, Labour remains neck and neck in the polls with the Conservatives. This is because, despite Theresa May's unpopularity, Jeremy Corbyn's tenure has proved equally divisive. Many Labour MPs worry that Corbyn has taken the party too dramatically to the left, causing a 2016 no-confidence vote in Corbyn's leadership that was backed by 172 MPs. Only 40 were against. Although nothing came of this, the party remains as internally fractured. Since then, anti-Semitism allegations have also plagued the party and resulted in the defection of 8 Labour MPs to the newly formed independent group. However, fortunes changed for Labour in April. The Conservatives' failure to leave the EU on time alienated its supporters, and the newly founded Brexit Party looks to hoover up many of these voters. This leaves Labour firmly ahead of its rival. The party's official position favours leaving the European Union, but ongoing internal tussles over backing a second referendum has thrown this into question. meaning Labour's actual stance remains very unclear. In the last EU election, Labour finished second behind Farage's UKIP, gaining 24% of the vote. And despite all the chaos, Labour looks to equal their 2014 result, polling at 25% on average. The centrist and firmly pro-European Liberal Democrats are led by Vince Cable. A man with the name of the superhero has been criticised for being about as interested in superglue. This lack of charismatic leadership has been damaging to the Lib Dems, as they exist in a crowded field of parties, also advocating a second referendum on Brexit, such as Change UK, the Greens, Plaid and the SNP. This division of remaining parties may see them punished under the D'Hondt system, as each party struggles to obtain a high enough percentage of votes to gain seats. The party's reputation also remains tarnished in the eyes of some from their 2010 coalition with the Conservatives. Amongst other things, the party was criticised when they reneged on a key manifesto promise to remove university tuition fees. Instead, they presided over a significant increase. However, their new post-referendum image as a firmly pro-European party appears to have remedied this. The Lib Dems, following their solid local election performance, look well on their way to be recovering as an electoral force. They look likely to increase their previous 6.6% to around a predicted 8.4%, but performance will still be hampered by the existence of Change UK, who played extremely similar policies. The independent group was born in February with much promise and was likened to the SDP, which was also formed by defecting Labour MPs, and who managed to change the direction of the Labour Party in the 80s. On the 18th of February 2019, 7 Labour MPs left the party due to allegations of anti-Semitism, followed by an 8th a day later. They were then joined by 3 Conservative MPs unhappy with their party's perceived rightward shift and stance on Brexit. These MPs formed the independent group. In only 3 days it became the joint 4th largest bloc in Parliament. It also picked up 2 disgruntled Tory MEPs in Europe. However, momentum quickly dissolved. Unlike the Brexit Party, Change UK, the independent group Remain Alliance of the House of Commons, first of their name Mother of Dragons, struggled to get their campaign off the ground, with their logo being branded as corporate, being criticised for not deciding a single name, and being plagued with scandals even from day one when it was embroiled in a race row. Change UK has struggled to differentiate itself from its established pro-European centrist rival, the Lib Dems, and many suggestions of a merger have been made and rejected. With TIG polling at 7.6% and averaging a dire 4% for general election polls, it may be short-lived if the parties do not band together, or Change UK does not find a distinct identity, as it will have to fight the better established Lib Dems for centre ground. The Greens are a left-wing environmentalist and pro-European party. They achieved 6.9% of the votes, giving them 3 seats in 2014. Little looks like these changed 5 years on, with the party polling around this number. The Greens cause has been promoted by the Extinction Rebellion, which has been protesting climate change and has seen 1,000+ arrests in London, so could offer some assistance in the polls, as public sympathy for green causes grow. But the Greens will suffer similar setbacks to other Remainers, as they are another party in the crowded field. Even given weak performances from the Lib Dems and the struggles of Change UK, the Greens will struggle to convince these centrist voters to join their left-wing platform, regardless of similarities in EU policy. At the previous election in 2014, Nigel Farage's UKIP set off a political earthquake, being the first party besides Labour or Tories to win in nearly 100 years, and acted as a catalyst for the 2016 referendum to leave. Now UKIP looks to be a weak aftershock. After a string of short-lived leaders, the party came under the management of Gerard Batten. The party was taken further right in an attempt to remain relevant, attracting the attention of many controversial figures, such as ex-EDL leader Tommy Robinson. This further right and anti-Islamic UKIP appears unpalatable to most voters, thus struggle to garner support even amongst Brexiteers. Following the founding of the softer alternative, the Brexit Party, UKIP has hemorrhaged most of the little support it had left. Having lost 1 seat to the Tories, 1 to the SDP, a party that only got 469 votes nationwide in the 2017 general election, 5 have become independent, and 14 joined the Brexit Party. It now holds just 3 of its initial 24 seats in the European Parliament. UKIP is polling at around 5.3% for the next election, and will only take a handful of MEPs at best. Ironically, it's the people who don't believe they should be voting in these elections who look set to get the most votes. Nigel Farage and his newly established Brexit Party has effectively capitulated his former party, taking 14 of their MEPs, and has gravely hurt the Conservatives in the short terms, with reports claiming that up to 40% of Tory councillors will vote for the Brexit Party. The Brexit Party is firmly anti-EU, advocating the UK leaves without a deal, yet offers a softer right-wing alternative to UKIP, thus has acquired a tsunami of support. While it is unlikely to replicate its European success on the national stage, Farage is poised to claim his second electoral win, with polls putting the Brexit Party at 25.7% and rising. meaning it is likely to exceed UKIP's 2014 tally of 26.6%. The UK's separatist parties are Plaid Cymru, advocating Welsh independence, and the SNP, the Scottish Nationalists. Both are left-leaning and pro-European. The SNP and Plaid are likely to benefit from fractious major parties significantly in terms of vote percentage, thanks to their unique selling point. Separatist voters are unlikely to be drawn away from their separatist parties by the turmoil of Brexit, and in the case of Scotland will likely be emboldened by the result. Unfortunately, there are no polls for Wales yet. However, it is likely Plaid's vote share will remain relatively stable, with a small increase. It will benefit from a weak Labour and Conservative Party, but simultaneously will suffer setbacks similar to the other pro-European parties, as the Occupy crowdies remain afield, all fighting for the same voters in Wales. In Scotland there are polls, and the SNP look to dominate. In 2014 the SNP won in the Scottish EU elections, but saw stiff opposition from Lamont's Scottish Labour, who were only 3% behind. This year the National Party looks to steamroll opposition. Its polls are around 40%, while other major parties will struggle to scrape above the teens. A result like this, paired with the Scottish desire to remain in the EU, given that 62% of Scots voted to remain, will doubtless embolden the nationalists and intensify calls for a second independence referendum. Whether this will actually be granted by Westminster, however, seems unlikely. So, what will be the result of all this? The EU elections and the poor Conservative results at the locals earlier in the month may finally give the Conservatives the wake-up call they need to oust Theresa May. It also could give the Conservatives the motivation to actually leave, although it is more likely that Theresa May will continue to cling to power, backed by Tory Remainers fearing a figure like Boris Johnson coming to power. Only time will tell. Thanks for watching.